Welcome, dear Liz friends. Welcome, everyone. We are very, very excited to be here tonight, once again, enlightening the Shire Spiritist group for our therapeutic meeting of the month. And we have a very special guest already here with us, Dr. Dan Assisi. So I will just introduce Dan first, and we'll start with our regular harmonization before we kick off with our therapeutic talk on mediumship. So Dan Assisi is an award-winning author and internationally celebrated speaker who has delivered hundreds of talks and conferences on spirituality in over 60 cities and 4 continents. He's known for his mix of deep thinking and witty humor, and then takes this unique approach to spirituality that is steeped in reason to remind our audiences everywhere of our spiritual nature. We are very, very excited to have you here, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us directly from San Diego, California, where we know it's very early. And we are very honored, very, very happy to have you join us and talk about mediumship tonight.
Oh, I am very thankful and grateful to be here with you guys today. Thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to be able to be with you since we're not exactly close geographically. At least we can do this virtually every once in a while. So it's a little bit early here, a lot later there for you guys, but I am very excited to have a conversation about mediumship today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dan. We're much, much appreciated. So before we have our meetings, we generally have a quick harmonization. So I'll take us through, just closing our eyes and taking a deep breath. And let's connect with our spiritual beings. Let's feel the essence in our hearts that connects us with the divine, helping us embrace this togetherness. Let's feel this whole energy of pure love and balance harmonize ourselves, our homes where we are connecting, and bringing us to the state of openness so we can learn together tonight. We can process, absorb the teachings that we're going to be talking about, and we can feel our connection into applying these concepts into our lives, feeling more connected with our spiritual beings and with our fellow beings around us, sharing this love and this light everywhere we go. We thank the light workers that are working with lighting the Shire and with Spiritism in Australia, in America, and all around this planet. We ask for their protection, for their inspiration during tonight's talk and this meeting. May our hearts be connected in this unity, in love and in knowledge. And we ask for this peace to stay with us during our talk tonight. So be it.
So be it.
Thanks again, Dan. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here with you guys today. Thank you for taking the time to watch this and to be with us. As the title suggests, we are going to talk about mediumship today. And I want to start by saying that there is absolutely no way that we can really go deep and long on this topic only in a couple of minutes. So what we want to do is really talk about the most important things, at least from my opinion, about mediumship, and hope that that may whet your appetite so that you may continue this conversation in your groups with the people that are close to you, or just really further your own investigation and your own research, because this is such an important topic, such a wonderful thing to know more about, because it is everywhere, as we're going to talk about. And so as you will get here, you might see there that I want to start with a picture. And this is the beautiful picture of the Sistine Chapel, where we have there in the ideas of the painter, the connection between God on the right side, reaching out to humans. And you can see that humans on the left side, symbolized by Adam, maybe look a little bit lazy here. It seems like God is doing all the lifting, but I think it's very explanatory of many different things about mediumship, and also this interaction between worlds that we want to talk about a little bit for. But so I hope that you will stay with us. I hope that you engage and you may put some questions and comments there for us as well. And again, my desire and my sincere hope is that this is the beginning of a conversation. If you're here, you might be here because um, you want to know more about mediumship. And why is that? Maybe because you are able to hear and see things that other people don't, and that's worrying you a little bit. Maybe because you want proof of life after life, because you are thinking about what's going to happen to you after this life ends. Or maybe you just really want to connect with those loved ones that may not be here with us today. But whatever the reason, we welcome you and we hope you join us in this new adventure. If anything else today, I would love for you to take away a couple of things. And I have 3 points for you. The first one about mediumship is that it is everywhere and it is always present. And the second one, it is that the understanding of mediumship was revolutionized by a book called The Medium's Book that came out in the 1860s. And we'll talk a little bit more about this book and why it's so interesting, because it allows us to learn about mediumship in a way that we could not do before that. And finally, the third thing that I really would love for you to take away from our conversation today, that mediumship, in my opinion, is one of the greatest proofs of God's love for us. Because we're able to connect with the divine in such a specific way, it really ought to lift our hearts so that we may feel really strengthened and consoled and loved in many different ways, right? So, all right, so let's dive into it a little bit so that we can kind of see how that could help us. Okay, let's see. All right, so what is mediumship? I think it's a great place for us to start. I think that anytime that we begin a topic, it's always interesting for us to talk a little bit about what it is and how we can understand it, right? So mediumship in many different ways is a natural ability that all of us have. It's one's ability to act as an intermediary between the physical and the spiritual realm. So it is about being a medium between these two facets of life. What's really interesting about it, too, is that this term was first coined by Allan Kardec in the 1860s. As far as I know, the term mediumship really did not exist before that time and place. And that is very interesting and curious for us, because it means that we have no historical reference before that time. So we are not going to find the term mediumship before the 1850s. And that is important because sometimes we think that mediumship is a new thing, that we only now are talking about this, that the TV shows or books or other things that we see are all things of the modern life. But truth is, mediumship has been with us for a very long time. And in that sense, it's really telling and really interesting, because if we are to look at it in many different ways through history, we'll see that mediumship has always been there. If we go back and understand that the word is new, but the context, the content, and the concept is timeless, we might be able to realize that we are talking about mediumship when we talk about the high priests of Egypt, when we talk about the oracles of the past, including the oracle at Delphi in Greece, which was a pretty famous one. We are talking about mediumship when we hear Socrates, for instance, talk about his daemons, which were spirits that he conversed with. And of course, we're also talking about mediumship when we talk about prophets in the Christian tradition, in the Old Testament or in the New Testament. More specifically, in the New Testament, we see, Mark, Luke, John, and all the evangelists really having this communication or talking about this, so much so that we could dive in and spend lots of time talking about this, you know, about the historical aspects of mediumship. But really, at the end of the day, we can really just kind of take a high level view of this, because we would spend tons of time just diving deeper into this. For example, if we were to look at the first letter to John in the New Testament, we will see that there is a pretty poignant comment here where he says, "Beloved, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God, because many false prophets are gone out into the world." And so when we say that because if we have this historical perspective, understand that the word mediumship is new, but the concept is timeless, we might be able to go back in history and see that it's this ability to be the intermediary between two planes of life. It's something that it should not surprise us. It has been there for a while. And that it's also very important to put us at ease as to what mediumship is and how we can better understand it, because it's been around forever. I talked about the prophets. I could talk about sibyls as well, and shamans in some traditions. More recently, we've also called some people who have the ability to connect with the spiritual world saints. And of course, more recently, more contemporarily, we have mediums as well. Then we have so many of them. We have Swedenborg. We have, Leonora Desperance. We have so many, Leonora Piper. We have so many mediums that we could talk about. But the point here really is this is something that's really not new, right? That we should be able to bring to our lives and understand that that is something that's been there. And I say that and spend some time saying that because sometimes people think that, this is a new thing that we don't really know about a lot about. But truth is, throughout human history, we have always had mediumship. We just call it by different names. And understanding that that is a fact of life may help us bring it down to our day-to-day life so that we can think about the fact that mediumship happens every day and everywhere. It happens right now. Maybe you're feeling some things, maybe you're sensing some things during this conversation we're having that it's not there. Maybe it happened during, your commute to work, or while you're washing the dishes at home, or when you're talking to a loved one. Maybe you feel different feelings at times, or ideas come to you that you did not think about in specific ways that kind of help you, and so forth. So it's very important for us to see that mediumship is just a natural fact of life. But once we talk about mediumship, it's also important for us to talk about mediums, because mediums, of course, are those who sense the influence of spirits to any degree of intensity. And that is also very important for us to talk about, because we often think that mediums are those who can speak to the spirits and can see them, because that's what we see on TV. That's what sometimes we read about. But truth is, all of us can sense the spirits in different ways. This is a faculty. This is an ability that is inherent to humankind. Much like anything else that we do, intelligence, perception, social intelligence, there is such a thing also as a spiritual intelligence or mediumship in general as well, this ability to sense the world. So sometimes we're not even aware that we're sensing the world, the spiritual world, but still there. It's an ability that all of us have. The difference is the degree to which we have it. Some of us have more than others, much like some of us are more perceptive than others in some aspects, or are more, coordinated than others. It's something that comes naturally to all of us, but we see that in different degrees. So we can also say that if all of us have it, then everyone is a medium to a certain degree. And that ought to help us understand that we can feel this wonderful spiritual energy, so we can feel the world around us, we can feel the vibe around us. Some people even like to use the term nowadays in different ways. And that's something that we can practice, we can improve, we can develop, but there are always limits depending on our ability, our innate ability, and how much mediumship we're able to do in this time around. And of course, as we dive deeper into that, it's also important to know, again, that we see that the spirits have an influence on our thoughts and actions. If we are able to sense them, then they are constantly influencing us. As a matter of fact, one of the most fascinating questions for me from this book called The Spirits Book, that was compiled by this man called Allan Kardec in 1857 in Paris, where he put together questions that he had posed to spirits, and organized them in a way that makes it really interesting for those of us who are trying to learn about the spiritual world. Question 459 is, do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? And the good spirits answer, their influence on you is, in this regard, is greater than you suppose, for very frequently it is they who guide you. That is to say, that is one of the reasons we study mediumship, because being aware of this ability to perceive the spiritual world helps us make sense of our feelings, our thoughts, our behaviors, our moods, and also that of others who are near or around us. And as we, continue, if you ever are interested more on mediumship, we should also know that mediumship really depends on a more or less sensitive physical organization, our body, and that sometimes that's the reason why it seems to run in families in a little bit more strongly than in other families, and so forth. But the most important piece here too is, if you are curious about mediumship, the one great thing to think about is that it does not express itself in all mediums the same way. That means that every single person has a different kind of mediumship. So it's not as easy to diagnose, so to speak, or identify, because everyone's different. Just like our fingerprints, everybody has a different mix of mediumship, and there are different types of mediumship, which you can read more about in this wonderful book called The Medium's Book, put together by Allan Kardec in 1861. There's so many interesting things that we can talk about this book, but I think the most fascinating things about The Medium's Book is that it was the first treatise on mediumship ever written. It was written in 1861. And until that time, mediumship was really the realm of the initiated. That is, for you to learn about mediumship, you had to be introduced to it by somebody else. It was hard to kind of really understand or have a body of knowledge that could be studied on your own in a more scientific way, where you could do trial and error and learn from the mistakes of others, until this book was written. And that's why I love this book, because in many ways, it's really a milestone in our understanding of mediumship as humanity, because it really becomes like mediumship becomes accessible after the publication of this book. Everyone and anyone can now pick up a book and understand how it works. And if they decide to dive into how to become a medium, they might find guidance over there as well. Oops, I am pressing buttons here that I shouldn't. Apologies for that. But my point is, until this book in the 1861, it will be really hard for you to really know what mediumship is and how to develop it, because you would have to know somebody. Now you have a resource that you can go back to and begin your studies in there. Another thing that this book does, and this understanding of mediumship does for all of us, is that it demythifies the medium. That is to say, since we're all mediums, we stop seeing the medium as a special supernatural person. We no longer have to put them on a pedestal or think that they have the supernatural ability that nobody else has, because we now know that mediumship being a natural ability that it's in everyone, makes them people just like you and I. The only difference is that they have more that degree, or maybe they have applied themselves a little bit more to that practice than you have. But it doesn't mean that they are special people, because we know that we're all special, and that there are no special people because we're all special. That is to say, everybody has their own worth, has their own abilities, and we should not put people at levels of expectation that we shouldn't give it to ourselves. So everybody has the ability to do this. Nobody is special. And that sort of breaks away a little bit with the idea of having that infallible guru that's going to give you solutions to all things in your life, because they know a lot more than you do. They might know some things more than you do in many different ways, but there is no one guru there that will really fix all your challenges or answer all your questions. especially when it comes to mediumship. That brings the power back to you and your ability to learn and grow and make your own decisions, and also think about how you go forth in your life. Then you are talking about a lot of things. So at the end of the day, what really is mediumship for? And I think that's a question that we really want to know once we begin to look more into um, mediumship. How can we use it? Why is it there if it's a natural piece of life and if it's always been there? Well, I can say that mediumship really is a tool for learning. I say that because with mediumship, we can learn from others and we can accelerate our learning. What does that mean then? It means that because now we can communicate with those who are no longer in a physical body and who sometimes are wiser than us. It's that part of the trick, figuring out who we are talking to. Just like in real life, we have fake news, right? In this world of ours, we want to make sure that we are not believing every spirit we talk to, but judging whether they are God, as John suggests in his first letter of John in the New Testament, for those of us who like the Christian tradition. It's really about making sense of things. And if we understand that we are communicating with those who have left the physical body, then we also know that eventually we will leave the physical body. And it's a wonderful opportunity for us to kind of get together with our thoughts and feelings to understand that we need to change our behavior. And when we take this thinking a step further and think about the fact that reincarnation is also a very important tool for learning, we can see how mediumship is such a powerful way of gaining knowledge. Because without mediumship, we would go through one whole lifetime with our learnings, then we will, discarnate, what we like to call. We go to the spiritual realm after we leave our physical bodies, or sometimes we call that death. Then we reflect upon our learnings and we do it again in the new life. And that's just a great way of doing it, of course, because we've been doing it forever. That's the natural way. But as we get smarter about mediumship and we are able to communicate with the spiritual world, we're able to shortcut that process in a good way by taking advice from people in the spiritual realm about how we're doing and how to proceed. We no longer need to wait until we pass to reflect on our habits and take new directions. That's why I like to say in many different ways that the study of mediumship really affords us a continuous process for evolution, much like a GPS, right? I think you might remember what it would be like to drive before GPS was invented. You would leave your house, you would go, get a map, know where you're going, and then get into the roads and, follow all directions. Hopefully you got there. If you got lost, you had to go back to the beginning or kind of figure things out on your own. But with a GPS, now, every time that you're going a little bit out of course, that friendly voice, and I called my Martha. Yes, I do name my GPS. I feel like he makes it for a more personal relationship. Martha comes in and says, recalculating. So it allows me to recalculate my path to my destination. Mediumship is not that much different. We can get some advice and we can get some thinking that allows us to rethink the way we're living and what we're doing, so that we can become better human beings and in the process live healthier and more fulfilling lives. So mediumship is powerful in that sense because it really lets us rethink how we're doing and get input and advice directly from those who have the big picture on the other side and who might be more experienced in navigating the challenges of this life because they have gone through it or they can see the obstacles that are around us. I'm talking a lot really fast, and I know there are a lot of things that we could talk about. But one of my big ideas here is that we really can shift with mediumship. We can shift from paying attention to physical effects, which is what we call, physical phenomena that take place in mediumship, to intellectual ones. So thinking about not only our physical bodies, but also our spiritual beings. So when we think about mediumship and what it has done and can do for us, is that it can change the way we see the world. And when we change the way we see the world, we can change the way we live and act upon the world. And that's a really powerful place to be in, because once we understand that we are spiritual beings who can constantly communicate with the spiritual realm, it really gives us new perspective on our lives here on earth. If we understand that we are here to grow and learn and to really develop ourselves, and that this is an ongoing process that happens through many lifetimes, and that we can apply ourselves to that process and be good students of that spiritual evolution by understanding that the things that are happening to us are just circumstances from this life, but that we can overcome them because we have overcome many lives before. It becomes a lot easier for us to go through the challenges of everyday life. The world is not easy out there these days. We have war, we have famine, we have hate, we have intolerance, and all those things are going to pass. And the world seems like it is going to a unhappy ending, so to speak. But truth is, we are all evolving in this beautiful planet of ours, which means that this world is also evolving, because when all the inhabitants of a place get better through learning, the whole place improves as well. It's just hard to see that because our focus sometimes is so narrow. It's so stuck in this here and now that we fail to see this big spiritual process at play. That we're just in a phase of conflict and drama in our growing process and bickering, but we are going to get better. And we know that because our good friends and our spiritual advisors, so to speak, our guides and mentors, tells us from the other side. And so mediumship is what allows us to understand all of that and to zoom out from our daily perspectives to see that we are more than meets the eyes, that we are more than this physical body. And that's why it's so great to study and practice mediumship, because it's a constant reminder that the spiritual side is more important than our physical sides. It's not to say that the physical world is not important or that we shouldn't take care of our bodies. Of course we should, but we should pay greater emphasis and greater attention to developing our spiritual side, developing our habits that are important to us not only in this lifetime but in the next lifetime, that would allow us to grow in such a way so as we can be of service to ourselves and to others. And mediumship is a fundamental piece of that, because once we think about it, the ability to understand that we transcend this physical body and that we have help along the way, it's really a beautiful blessing. It is really a great gift from God, so that we may put our hearts at ease during difficult times, so that we may understand that we are truly never alone and there's those who love us and care for us on the other side. And that it's also very important for us to deal with the challenges we face here and now, so the relationships that we have, because many times we will carry those relationships to many different lives ahead of us, or we have brought them from lives before us, and we have to straighten things out, because we're all heading the same way, we're all evolving, and we might as well solve that now so that we don't have a negative influence on each other as we move forward. So there are many different reasons why one should study mediumship. But again, our time is short, and I suggest that you get in touch with a Spiritist group around you, or with any other spiritual group out there that may want to study that. And if you're looking for a resource whereupon you can base your studies, a great way of doing that is using the Medium's book, which is a collection of different questions posed to different spirits in different places and different times, that are then compared and brought together in a compendium of knowledge that gives you the certainty that you're not just taking advice from one person, from one guru, because nobody knows it all. But when you take advice from many different specialists, so to say, or wise people or sages from the spiritual realm, it becomes a lot easier for us to guide our development. It does require effort, like any other course of study, right? But it's worth it. There is definitely a great benefit to those who want to learn it. And that is why, in many different ways, it's important for us to understand that, the study of mediumship is a continuous process that we can continue to talk about for many different ways and dive deeper in many different venues and opportunities. And that's why we really hope that you will continue your studies. But to make a long story short, because time is also short, What we want to talk about today and remind you of is that our main points for our conversation, and that is that mediumship, it's everywhere and it's always present. All of us are mediums, only differing in degrees. All of us can sense and act upon the spiritual world, and that makes us mediums, which means none of us are really special, supernatural beings better than others. We're all in this process together. And number two, it's important to understand that the process of understanding mediumship was revolutionized by this medium's book, which was the first time ever in the history of civilization where we get a work, a body of knowledge that is trying to convey to us how mediumship works and how you can learn about it without ever charging a fee for it, making it very accessible for every and anyone out there. And it remains a great tool and a great resource for you should you want to learn more about mediumship. And third, last but definitely not least, and I think this is the greatest thing that I would love for you to take away from this conversation, the most salient and important point, it is that mediumship, in my opinion, is one of the greatest proofs of God's love for us because it gives us an opportunity to learn more about our true essence, our spiritual essence, and in the process also reminds us that we have continued guidance and support that is really easy to access. It only depends on our willingness to stop, to concentrate, to connect with the divine through prayer, through harmonizations, through meditation, whatever works for you, that you can feel that as a spiritual being that you are, you have a beautiful future ahead of you and that you will succeed in your ultimate goal, which is to develop and grow as a human being, as a universal spirit. I'm going to stop there because there are lots of different things we could talk about, but I hope that whets your appetite to study more about mediumship and know that it's everywhere and that it's easy to understand and that's really true of proof of God's love.
Thank you so much, Dan, for such a illuminative talk, and I hope everyone has enjoyed learning a little bit more about mediumship along the way, and that we can continue to look for studying along and looking for more knowledge in that area, like you said. And I feel just exploring as well our feelings, our emotions, and what's happening around us with a different view. So we really, really appreciate your time and your efforts, and we look forward to seeing you all online again for our next therapeutic meeting, Enlightening the Shy Spiritist group, in a month's time. And I hope you have a lovely day there and everyone has a blessed month ahead. We will just quickly send some vibrations of love and light to the whole world, I guess, as we're all connected here. Take this opportunity to do that. Happy for you to guide it if you like, Dan, to wrap up for us, as you have such an amazing opportunity to do that for us tonight.
Of course, it would be my absolute honor. Thank you for having me. Thank you for you who are watching, who are interested in this topic, and thank you also for our friends in the spiritual realm who support and guide us. And that's why it's always great for us to lift up our minds and hearts to the divine and find space in our daily lives, such as we're going to do right now, to just to be grateful and to be thankful for the chance and the opportunity to study about our spiritual essence. So, as I raise my thoughts up to the Creator who has given us so many wonderful tools, I ask for continued guidance and support for all of us in navigating life's challenges through our constant effort, to perseverance, through patience, through understanding of other people's plights. And I also ask for fortitude of heart to remember that as spiritual beings, we have the support and love of those who care for us, which is not a small number in the spiritual realm, and who continue to inspire us to move forward and to be better versions of ourselves. So thank you, God. Thank you, the benefactor spirits. Thank you for all those who support every single person in their journey. And we hope that we may continue to study our spiritual selves in ways that elicit growth. And we are very thankful as well for Lighten the Shire, for making a space for this kind of conversation and for the studies that the group does. Congratulations to all group members, to all our Spiritist friends in Australia who continue to study this important topic, talk about it, spend time with each other. Thank you for your continued contribution to the world. And I hope that we can see each other soon.
Thank you so much, Dan. Blessings, everyone, and we'll see you all online soon. Take care.